One of the biggest problems that most entrepreneurs have is finding enough time to do all the things that need to be done, all the marketing, all the admin, all the copywriting and funnel building and wrestling with technology and learning new skills, and not to mention serving customers and clients. So is it the same for you? Do you need more time? One of the most cliched things I've ever heard was that everybody has exactly the same number of hours in the day. So theoretically, or so say the gurus, you should be able to get as much stuff done as anybody else. But I have to say that has to be one of the most true things that I've ever heard. Yes, we do all have 24 hours in a day. What we don't all have is the same amount of time that we can give to building and growing our businesses. Now, I have the luxury, and yes, it is a luxury, of being able to devote my working day to my business. But what if you're a business owner with young children? Or what if you have an elderly parent or someone with a disability to look after? What if you only had 3 to 5 hours total per week to work on your business? Think about that for a bit. How would you cope? And how fast would your business grow if you could only work on it for 3 hours a week? How would you even prioritize what to work on without going crazy thinking about everything else that needs to be done and knowing that you might not be able to work on something that's high priority for weeks? Welcome to the Online Business Launchpad podcast. I'm Trudy Rankin, and I bring you stories, tips, and advice from online entrepreneurs who are finding success. Because if we've done it, so can you. I've been running my own online business for 9 years now, with more than a few twists and turns as I've learned what to do and what not to do to achieve my goals. And because of what I've learned, I've become passionate about helping overworked and overwhelmed online business owners like you grow your business without burning out or having to hire a big team. I've used my experience and the experience of others to help hundreds of people grow their online business. And one of my greatest joys is working with people who, because of life circumstances, need a flexible work from home or work from anywhere option that helps them pay the bills. My mission is simple. I want to help you solve the challenges you face as a far too busy online business owner so you can have more time and money for yourself and your family and more choices in how you live your life. So, if you're ready to once again dive into online business building and talk about getting more done in less time and with less stress, stick around. So, my question for you is, have you ever wished magic was real? Or that you could invent something that would help you solve this giant time problem, magic or not, a problem that we all have as we work on our businesses. Now, if you're a Harry Potter fan, you'll know that Hermione Granger had a couple of things that were amazing at helping her manage time. There was the time turner, where you could go back in time, say, for an hour, and repeat that hour doing something different than what you'd done before, which was really brilliant for getting two things done at the same time. Which is all very cool, but if you've read the book or watched the movie, you'll know that the stress of doubling up her time nearly did Hermione in, and she ends up giving the time turner back. But the second thing she has is her bag, which was really small on the outside, but it's really big on the inside, and it can fit in tons of stuff, all without making her bag any heavier. Well, I want a calendar that takes that same concept and applies it to my working hours. I want to be able to squish a lot more stuff into a lot less time. But since I can't have Hermione's bag or its calendar equivalent, I've had to create my own way of dealing with the whole too much to do, too little time problem. And there are 3 things that have helped me do this, and I want to share them with you today. The hardest lesson I've ever had to learn about getting more done in less time was that I had to plan. And that's the first thing I want to talk to you about. Now, I'm always curious about new things, so my idea of the perfect day is to be able to spend it exactly as I like, which means browsing books and websites, going surfing in the water, not the internet, having interesting conversations with interesting people, writing if I feel like it, and trying out emerging software just to see what new things that they might be able to help me do. Now, unfortunately, your business and my business would fold pretty quickly if we just did whatever we felt like, whenever we felt like it. So I make a particular point of making time for those repetitive tasks that have to be done every week, whether I feel like them or not. And I schedule them into my calendar. Things like planning out my week. Yes, I plan to plan. Things like writing newsletters, recording podcasts like this one, doing my finances, and all the other admin-y type things that need to be done and that I really hate doing. And to make actually doing those repetitive things easier, I get together with some of my Online Business Liftoff community members twice a week for co-working sessions where we focus on specific things. We have writing Wednesdays and finance Fridays. And in those co-working sessions, we have a quick chat and then we set a timer and we just get to work, each of us working on what's most important for us at that moment. Now, setting aside time to concentrate on one thing and making it a habit to then actually concentrate on that thing helps me focus and focus intensely, which means I get more done in less time than I would have otherwise. And having that accountability of our Online Business Liftoff co-working sessions really helps as well. So planning and then doing as a discipline is key to being more productive. Now, the second thing that really helps me get more done in less time is standardizing the steps in a task and doing them as predictably as I possibly can. Now, yes, it takes a bit of time to get to the place where the steps are standardized, but it's worth it because once they are standardized, you can hand them off to someone else, and I'll talk more about that later, or you can automate some of the steps. But where do you start? Well, I'm going to share the 4-step process that I use to standardize my tasks, and I'm going to share that with you now. So step 1 is to make sure that you have a clear understanding of where your time is being spent. What sorts of tasks are you doing? How long is it taking you to do those tasks? And if you're not sure, then have a look at your calendar, use what's there to map out a rough idea of what you typically do, then spend at least a week writing down what you're doing and filling in the gaps where your calendar is blank. Once you've done that, you should have a pretty solid list of tasks that you typically do in, let's just say, a typical week. Now, for step 2 of this process, you need to think about which of those tasks on that list would really benefit by being done the same way each time. In other words, by standardizing the steps. Now, you don't want to do that for everything. Some stuff is project-based and it's going to be a once-off thing. But for things where there's a benefit to doing the same way each time, you're going to want to look at how you can standardize. So then you're going to document step by step how you do each of the tasks. You can do that by literally writing the steps down on paper or in a document, or you can make a video of yourself going through each step and explaining out loud what you're doing and why. Now, this can be a particularly handy way of showing someone else what to do so you can hand over the task at some future point in time. And it also is a good way of helping you identify places where what you're doing might be just a little bit silly. You might be double handling something or doing something a really hard way when there's an easier way to do it. Now, step 3 can be a little bit tedious and take a bit of brain power. So when you get to step 3, go grab yourself a hot drink of your choice and go somewhere quiet where you can think. You're going to go through each step of each task and ask yourself the question, is there a better way to do this? Could I do it differently? Or maybe not do this step at all? Could I combine this step with that other step? Then you're going to update whatever document you've used to capture each step so that it reflects the way you've decided to do that task in the future. And once you've consolidated the steps for each particular task as much as you can, then you're ready for step 4. In step 4, you want to go through your list of tasks again, and your goal is to identify the tasks which A, could be automated, and B, will save you time if they are automated. For example, I used to spend hours and hours each week producing these podcast episodes, and it was a really, really big job. And I was starting to wonder how much longer I could keep dedicating that much time to my podcast. Even though I really love doing it, I really enjoy doing my podcast. So I went through the first 3 steps of the process that I've just told you about and identified the things that I was doing, And I chose my podcast publication process as the thing that would help the most if I could simplify it, if I could just simplify it. Then I used Trello to map out all the steps that it took me to produce each podcast episode. And I wrote down in a checklist every single thing that had to be done and in what order. And it was a lot. I had no idea how much work was involved until I actually did this step. Then after I had written down everything that was involved, I went through and I consolidated some of the steps, and I went looking for ways that I could just shorten up the process just a little bit. And then I went looking for ways to automate what I could automate in that publishing process. And right about then, I came across a tool called Descript, Descript, which is a video and audio editing tool. And I tried it out, and it was in its early days there, so it didn't have as much functionality back then as it does now. But even then, even when it was really new, it didn't take long before I was really hooked on this tool, because it helped me go from 10 hours or more to produce my podcast episodes for each podcast episode. And that's along with the show notes, the transcript, the audio, the video, social media snippets, the whole works. And it took that 10 hours and it cut that time down to right around 2 hours a week. Now, that is a huge, huge time savings. I basically gave myself back a whole day each week that I could use on something else. Now, the third thing that I've discovered is really, really helpful in being able to do more things in less time is that it's helpful, really, 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 really helpful to set your priorities and decide very determinedly, very specifically what you're going to focus on. But there's a bit of an art to choosing what to do with tasks once you've identified them and realize that you're doing them and you've documented each step. And because most solopreneurs, micro and small business owners like you are overworked, overwhelmed, and underpaid for all the hours that you spend on your business, the fewer tasks that you have to worry about, the better. So when I need to prioritize what tasks should be done or what I should be working on, I use what's known as the Eisenhower Decision Matrix. Now, Dwight D. Eisenhower used this matrix to help him prioritize and manage all of the many issues, most of them which were quite seriously high stakes, that he had to deal with, first as a U.S. Army general and then as the Supreme Allied Commander of the NATO forces in World War II, and then later as President of the United States. Now, Asana, who they've got a really great project management tool, which I use, wrote an article that explains this Eisenhower Decision Matrix fairly well if you want to look into it some more, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes. But the guts of the Eisenhower Matrix is this. If you imagine a 2x2 grid, so you've got 4 squares total, one axis of that grid is labeled important and not important, and the other axis is labeled urgent, not urgent. So you end up with 4 boxes, one of which is not important and not urgent, one of which is not important but urgent, the third one is important but not urgent, and the fourth one is important and urgent. So what you do is you take that matrix, which you hopefully will draw out on a piece of paper. I found that's the easiest way of doing it. And you take your list of tasks and you pop them into the relevant box. Now, just doing that will make you more aware of what's sitting in the not urgent, not important box. And you'll know you can just stop doing those things and not feel guilty about it. And for the things that do need doing at some point, you'll be wanting to step back just a little and let somebody else do the stuff you're either not good at or you hate doing. But how do you decide what to let go of and what to keep? Well, Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, took this Eisenhower matrix and turned it into what I call the 4 Ds. And you look at each task that you've got listed in the Eisenhower Decision Matrix, and then you decide whether to delete it, delay it, delegate it, or do it. So anything that's in the not urgent, not important box should probably be deleted. Maybe delayed, but probably deleted. And then in the not urgent but important box, you can either decide whether those tasks should be delayed or delegated. And this is where all your hard work of documenting your tasks step by step is going to pay off in a really big way. Why? because you are going to find it much, much easier to A, define exactly what you want somebody to do, and B, write the role description, and C, onboard your new person, train them, and then eventually hand over that task to them to do. So out of all of those tasks that you originally listed, you should now only have left just the do it tasks. Those are the tasks that are both urgent and important. And you will have automated as much of those as you can. So there you have it. Planning your tasks, standardizing those tasks, and then applying the 4D rules to help you prioritize are going to result in you being able to squeeze a lot more into less time with less stress. But now there is a caveat to that. Doing all that work up front so you can do more in less time doesn't mean that every week is going to be wonderful and you'll be able to, basically tick everything off your list that you wanted to achieve. Now, for those of you living down under, you'll know that we recently had a holiday here in Victoria, Labor Day to be precise. I had it marked out in my calendar, but when I did my planning, I forgot it was a holiday. So I loaded up my week with things I wanted and needed to get done. But when I went, oops, it's a holiday, I decided that I wasn't going to do any work that day. I was actually going to take the day off, and I went boogie boarding instead. And I just enjoyed playing around in those deliciously cool ocean waves that we have not so far away from where I live, and just relaxed, which meant that the rest of the week was a race against time, trying to squish all the things I needed to get done into just 4 days. What I should have done instead was to go back to my 4Ds list and just delay a bunch of stuff. Because by the end of the week, I had clean forgotten that I'd taken a whole day off work at the beginning of the week, and I was still trying to cram a whole week's worth of work into just 4 days. So my point is, despite our best efforts to be efficient and productive, life happens, and we just need to be kind to ourselves. There is no point in beating up ourselves over our mistakes or things we can't control. Just delete, delay, or delegate, and get on with doing what you can in the time that you have. And if you've done everything that I've mentioned above, that's going to be a whole lot more than it would have been otherwise. So get out there, do your planning, get your processes documented, get your automations set up, and put those 4Ds to work for you. And then congratulate yourself on doing the best you could with the time and resources that you have. And I'll see you next time. Take care out there.
If you're a longtime listener to the Online Business Launchpad podcast, you'll know that I often talk about Patlin's SPI Pro community. Now, what you might not know is that I'm a founding member of that community. And every year I keep signing up because I get so much value out of it. For example, every month I meet with a mastermind group whose members are at the same spot on the entrepreneurial journey as I am. And we celebrate our wins and navigate challenges together. And if we want to chat in between meetings, we just easily jump into the space that's reserved just for our mastermind and just say whatever's on our mind. It's a really supportive space where we all keep growing in confidence and capabilities, knowing that someone or several someones have got our back. And that's not all the value I get from being part of the SPI Pro community. I have access to really relevant trainings that Pat has put together. Plus, I've connected with several amazing guests for my podcast, experts who shared invaluable insights with my audience. And the opportunities just keep coming. I've had the honor of being on Patlin's own podcast and even teaching other SPI Pro members about some of the things that I'm expert in. And being a part of the SPI Pro community is like having my own special group of advisors that I can reach out to anytime I need them. Imagine having that network at your fingertips, where every connection inspires and every interaction teaches something new. That's what SPI Pro is all about for me. It's more than a community. It's a place where we as entrepreneurs come together to push the boundaries of what we can achieve. So are you ready to be part of something bigger? To learn, share, and grow alongside fellow business owners who are just as driven as you? Check it out for yourself and see for yourself the difference a truly collaborative community can make. And if you'd like to use my affiliate link to sign up, go to onlinebusinessliftoff.com/SBI-Pro. If you do, I'll receive a small commission at no extra cost to you, for which I thank you. And once you're in the community, say hello, and I'll be delighted to show you around. So join me in the SPI Pro community, and let's reach new heights together. Once again, that's onlinebusinessliftoff.com/SPI-Pro. And we'll see you there.